Welcome to the Nurse with Nora podcast. I'm Nora LaTorre. I'm so happy today to have here Meija Jacobs, who's one of my favorite people. She moves people to own their creative power in service of a more vibrant and beautiful world. As a creative leadership coach, as an advocate for the arts, as a board leader for real food for kids in school, as a creative, resourceful, whole human being. So let's dive in. First, I want to talk about the power pivot. You, Meija, are queen of the power pivot and queen of life and work bold moves. You've been a ballerina, a communications and design thinking exec at IDEO, a board member at Eat Real, where I'm the CEO, and most recently, you became an executive coach. So what prompted you to power pivot and reinvent yourself as a coach and build a big practice overnight? And welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, Nora, you're one of my favorite people too. And I love that you think that I made a power pivot. Maybe it was a power pirouette, but I did not build a practice overnight necessarily. You know, we all know that old adage, like overnight success is 10 years in the making. And that was true for me, but like with a flip, I would say, which is that I didn't know when I was working away for decades in advertising and, design innovation that it was to become a coach. And coaching came for me. Everything I've done in my life, from dancing to psychology to advertising to my time at IDEO, just naturally led up to this moment where in 2023, as I was working at IDEO as an executive, I became my mom's primary caregiver. She became ill. She had lived a beautiful, long life, but this was the end of it. And I was an only child, so I was called to take a job that I never thought that I would take. And I was cracked wide open. It really stripped things back and allowed me to see things from a perspective that I just couldn't have otherwise seen. And in that moment, as I was her primary caregiver and I was showing up to work at IDEO remotely, I became aware that like my energy was actually lighting up around people more than it was around content. And so slowly but surely the dots started to connect and I realized that I was now being called to do something that really all the threads were connecting in my whole career towards. I just didn't know it until I knew it.
Interesting that you also had to take a more of a power pivot. It sounds like a power pause and like a powerful pause, like centering with your mom. And I remember when you moved to Hawaii, like you really like changed your whole life and took that pause and went really deep and then came back and I feel like looked at life with a new perspective. So interesting to think about the power of a life pause.
Yes, it did not feel like a pause in the moment, but it felt like a level of expansiveness and perspective that was amidst total chaos. So I guess I'm here to say that like the power of the pause doesn't have to be taking a break.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can find a fresh perspective, you can find the pause in the middle of the storm. And that was my mom's final gift to me. Like whether she knew it or not, she helped me see the world differently and what mattered to me in that moment freshly.
So beautiful. I'm like tearing up a little bit. Thank you so much, Meija, for sharing that story of your mom. And one thing that I'm going to walk away with, and that she's giving to me, is that we can dream in the storm, and that sometimes the storm is the moment to dream. And I think that's like such a powerful reminder to people when they're going through hard times that it is a pause and it is complicated, but even in the storms we can dream. And so I'm gonna think of her and think of you with that gift. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
So now in this new kind of career moment, one of the things that I see you do over and over again with people that work with you is that you help leaders not play small. So what does that mean and why is that important?
Yeah. Well, I will credit Tara Moore for writing the book called Playing Big.
Okay, is that one of your favorites? Okay, noted.
it's definitely worth a read. It's quite practical, actually, but it might be more for people who are practice like coaches. I don't know. I think anyone would get something out of it, though. Um, but she actually went to the same coaching program that I did, Coactive, where I did a lot of unlearning from consulting, my amazing consulting career that taught me that my value and my worth was in fixing and solving people's problems. And as a coach, I had to unlearn that that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you find your answers, um, not with my own agenda. But Tara Moore's Playing Big talks about, what it means to not play small. And here's my interpretation and the way that I have integrated what playing big actually means. It's not about being it's not about being loud and grandiose. And Tara Moore's book it is focused on women. Um, and so I think a lot of times women, have come up thinking that in order to play in the executive suite, a lot of times women have come up through the workplace thinking that to play in the executive suite, they have to adopt, the characteristics and traits of alpha males. And that's not what playing big is about. Like playing big is taking up space for sure, but it's also about making space. And it oftentimes people, women in particular, when they're playing small, they are listening to their inner critic. They're striving for people pleasing. They're striving for perfection. They're trying to control outcomes because these are the things, if you grip onto those things, then you're going to succeed and you'll find your way to being recognized for success. So, but it's actually like this weird self-fulfilling prophecy that the harder you try to people please or be perfect or control the outcomes, like the the smaller you're making the box that you can succeed in. And one thing that I coached my coachees on is the idea that like a lot of people come saying I want to build my executive presence, right? Because that's important for how I can play big and show up and take up space. And I actually think of it as like it's not executive presence. It's powerful presence. And what I mean by that is when you're listening to your inner critic that's telling you to please people or telling you to be perfect or telling you not to fail or telling you to control the outcome, you're listening to something else that's not the people in the room. So you're becoming small by being boxed in, listening to this inner critic voice that's keeping you small by not allowing you to take risks, not allowing you to try it in a way that feels more natural and that feels like you would be in your power and in your flow. If you can turn off that inner critic voice or recognize it, thank it for doing all the hard work of trying to protect you and keep you safe. Thank you, people pleaser, Meija. I don't need you right now. Can you please go sit in the corner so that I can take a risk? I can listen to my inner intuition. I can listen to my inner wisdom and show up in this room with full presence, listening to what people are actually saying, not just at like the words level of listening, but at the intuitive level of listening, at the like what's not being said, what's really the energy in the room here, because that's where you get the edge. That's where you get the edge of being able to play bigger, own that room, lead the room, because you're actually tuned in to what people are really saying. If you're listening to that inner critic voice, you're small and you're over here and you're letting it drive you instead of you're driving it.
It's so interesting about how that our inner critic and our negative self-talk distracts us from unlocking our full ability to have emotional intelligence and intuition and being able to really be perceptive to all of the different feelings and things unsaid in a room because we're in our own heads versus fully in the room. Like that actually the presence is being fully present and looking at people in the eyes and not being presently occupied with worries in your head. It's super interesting that I haven't thought about that of like actually I do think when I go in a room like how do I like how an executive coach Reba Rose and she had me like like think about like opening my energy for the full room, right? But I had never thought about like leaving my inner critic at the door, or acknowledging what those things are before I walk in, leaving them and saying I'll see you afterwards, and then walking into the room and
Yeah.
holding court, you know, in a different way. So I think that's really, really powerful.
Yeah. I'll say it again and I'll give you one tip too.
Yeah, great.
You're playing small when you're listening to your inner critic. You're playing big when you are present to what's going on in the room and you're fully present, you're listening. You're able to drop in and listen to your true self instead of your critic. And you're at your best um, when you're able to drop in and listen to that full you as opposed to the inner critic you. And the tip that I have is I used to have this post-it on my computer, and now it's just seared into my brain, so I don't need the post-it anymore. But it's WAIT, wait, and it stands for why am I talking?
Ooh, I like that.
And it's a helpful like nudge to remember, like, if I'm talking, I can't be listening. If I'm letting my inner critic talk to me, I can't be listening. If I'm listening, then I'm present and I can play big because I'm allowing my true inner wisdom and power to show up in that room.
I love it. I also love the idea of like a post-it reminder until it's seared into your brain. Like it's like that is so good. Okay, I'm gonna make that post-it. I love it. I'm gonna try it.
On the subject, I had a coachee who came to me having just been promoted, and instead of feeling empowered, they felt paralyzed. They were second guessing themselves in every room, shrinking back, convinced that they weren't really ready and they were going to be proven wrong, that they shouldn't have gotten the promotion. And so in the coaching, we paused and we explored, what does it feel like when you're actually in your element? And I had them tell me a story of a time when they were like lit up and feeling super courageous and confident and in their flow. And we anchored that feeling. And then we prototyped some small ways that they could step into that feeling in real life. Because confidence isn't something that you wait for, it's something that you practice. And so one of the first experiments that they did was reaching out. This is so simple and so small, but reaching out to someone in their network for lunch that they were a little bit intimidated by, and that they thought they needed to have like a bigger pitch or a bigger proposal or a bigger reason to belong in a conversation with that person. And through coaching, my coachee realized that the only thing they really needed to show up at that lunch was like curiosity and a shared interest. And by leading with curiosity and inviting this person to a collaborative conversation, casual, playful, they ended up brainstorming like a collaboration that, led to something else and a genuine deeper connection with this person who's now like in their network in a more deeper, meaningful way. And so that experience gave my coachee like more courage and more confidence, to try out playing big, even when they weren't fully there with feeling like, they were that yet.
I love it. And they went for it, and then they had the good muscle memory of like I can do hard things. And that they could have that new opportunity. And then that made the next time that they wanted to speak up in a meeting or ask someone to lunch, they went for it. Did they feel like, what did they report back? Like how did they show up differently at work, or at like how did it change their presence?
Like, I mean, obviously it was a cumulative of that, sparked the next thing, sparked the next thing. So not just that one lunch changed everything, but like by changing that mindset and starting to prototype and build those muscles, by the time, 4 months later, we were done with that particular segment of our coaching, they were giving talks, they were leading conferences, like they were, bringing people together to collaborate and brainstorm around things that were just coming from a place of like real excitement to explore new ideas, as opposed to, am I good enough, or how am I going to be seen if I try to show up at this level or in this conversation.
I love it. That is like a very fast transformation. I feel like in the span of months to be able to go from I had this opportunity to like that now it's a strength and look at me like soar. That is so awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And I mean, it's all them. Like I'm not taking credit for it. I, encourage them to try on some things, but it's all them.
Of course. I was like, of course. And I mean, I love coaching, but I love being coached, but I also like, I know what an exceptional coach you are. So I've seen you do that with me. So it's also you. I'm just going to say that. But yeah, I personally love your coaching also because I feel like you help put leaders in beginners mindset, right? You help us like start from scratch and like really build and look at things. You have so many good prompts that you work with and bring people really deep. And so successful CEOs and executives are always evolving. I feel like I'm always evolving. We're like leaders are always evolving, team members are always evolving, and that does take some space. And I feel like that's part of the power of coaching is that regular space that you dedicate to getting in a beginner's mindset, really working on your leadership, etc. So how do you help create space for leaders and you've worked with teams. I've seen you work with teams. I don't know if you're also coaching teams too, but yeah, how do you create that space where they come to you and feel vulnerable and then, work with you?
Yeah. Deep, deep, deep listening, creating the space for leaders and teams to feel like it's a non-judgmental space where they can experiment and explore. It's one thing for people to do that around work, right? Like they might be an IDEO or an innovation designer of some kind or in the creative field where they're used to exploring ambiguous ideas. But when it comes to yourself, it's arguably a lot harder. The stakes are different. Their stakes are higher. So deep, deep listening that allows me to dance in the moment with where either that field of energy, if it's a group, where that is, and kind of like reading the room, or like with a person and being super, super tuned in. And what I will say, like the roots of that for me are in dance. Like I grew up as a dancer. I went to performing arts high school. I danced 6 hours a day all through high school. I would do my academics in the morning and then we would go train in the dance studio. And this is an this is like a sport dance that teaches you how to be in a team dynamic, sometimes leading, sometimes following, without any words. So from a young age, I was like growing up to learn how to communicate with other people in a space, and these days in a virtual space. Thankfully, I did it in a real life space growing up so that I got it in my bones. But reading people beyond their words through movement, through energy, through tension, I learned to listen with my whole body. And in coaching, one of the things like that you learn is levels 1, 2, and 3 listening. Level 1 listening is like actually you like someone's talking and you're like thinking about what you're going to say next, right? You're like listening to yourself and it's your own judgment version of like what's being said and how you're going to join the conversation. Level 2 is like you're really tuned in to like what are they actually saying. You're a good student. You're following along. Like maybe you're taking notes, but you're really taking in what is being said. And you might even be noticing like some between the lines stuff. But level 3 listening is like completely beyond words, completely beyond logic. It's instinctual, it's intuitive, it's tracking emotion in context and really like synthesizing and connecting the dots in real time of like, wait a minute, like what is the context of this that's being said right now and the way that it's being said in the larger context of like what's going on, where we are, what's happening with this person, what's being unsaid. So that kind of listening creates space for leaders to hear themselves differently. And that's like the beginning of real change. Like transformation comes from starting from that place of like deeply, deeply listening and creating the space that comes with that.
You are so masterful at that and reading and moving, kind of like keying the emotion of. So I love that you create the individual space for people, but then also help them think through team dynamics and whatnot and how to be that kind of level 3 listener themselves. Like you are that level 3 listener, but then you also offer that to other people. And it's interesting to think about, like, how can I be a level 3 listener right now? Or like, what's the level 3 emotion that's going on? Like, and actually starting there, right? We used to start some team meetings, like we had a bunch of different prompts. Like, if you were a tree, what tree would you be? If you were a weather system, what weather system you would be? And it just got everyone starting, I feel like, on level 3 of like, really feels like a tsunami right now, or like I am like a whatever tree in a storm or something like that, like, but how do we get ourselves in a deep place of emotion, and then also be able to read the room is like such a powerful kind of next level facilitative leadership
And
power.
that right there, that setting the meeting with that kind of shared context um, of where the energy's at or where the mood is at is a power move
Mm,
for what a good meeting actually looks like. And it's been proven that when you run meetings like that, starting with some kind of not just icebreaker, like
yeah.
not to do the exercise of an icebreaker that everyone's going to like roll their eyes at, but to truly like give that moment to tuning in and connecting with each other, creates stronger teams, creates like deeper connections, more collaboration, more harmony.
Yeah.
Because you're like actually then tuned it, like you know something about the other people and you know when they're lit up, you know when their energy, drained.
Yeah, and you have empathy for them, whatever they're going through. You know that they're like a complex human who's showing up, thinking about the moment, but also thinking about other things. So yeah, it just lets everyone show up in a more human way, I think, for sure. I love that. So you and I know each other because you're on the board of Eat Real, one of the leading children's health nonprofits in the country, where I'm CEO, and you're on our board. And one of the total career highlights that I had was working with you when you were at IDEO and leading up their communications. And we did a 5-week design thinking and brand refresh sprint. We reimagined Eat Real's brand because you had the insight that we were about to go national, that we needed to grow up and glow up. And then within 5 weeks, you and your incredible, brilliant team helped us overhaul the entire brand system. So, and that then catapulted us into the future. And then now we're starting to become that brand that it then kind of breathed possibility into. So that was just absolutely game changing for our small but mighty nonprofit. So how can brands think about breathing new life into their companies with cohesive storytelling? And maybe talk about that experience that we had together, or that's one of the incredible superpowers that you have.
Cool. Yeah. And actually, like weirdly, brand strategy has relevance. Well, not weirdly, because I said it all threads together all the things that I did, right? In my career led to me being the coach that I am. So brand strategy actually has some real overlap and relevance to coaching.
Is that because of the personal brand strategy, thinking about your own personal brand, or where does it come into play?
Yeah, like so interestingly, the parallel that I've found and like me having built my muscles on brand strategy over many years that I find to come to the forefront of my coaching is with brand strategy, what you're doing is you're finding the truth. You're like, sometimes if a brand has been around for a long time and it's like kind of lost its way or something, you got to dig a little bit to get under the onion and like what is the core truth of that brand that we can use as a jumping off point. But you get to the essence, which for a person is like, what is your truth? Like what actually is, what is your set of core values? What's fulfillment for you? Like what is your why? Right? So like I do that with people now, helping them. It's not so easy to do for yourself, right? To articulate
Yeah.
those things. So with a brand, you're getting to that all the time. You're like, okay, let's get to the core of what this brand is about. What is its why? What's its purpose? Its reason for being. And then from there, you're like building the brand muscles to express itself out in the world. And it has to be um, whole enough that like it has dimension to it. Like you don't want to create a brand that's just friendly, 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 or like, one note, because that's not authentic. Like people relate to brands that have a sense of humor, but also like some smarts and some credibility and trust and, you know, some other like aspects of their personality, like something dynamic, maybe something stern, but like there's different aspects of a brand personality that all kind of anchor in a core. So yeah, the parallel for me with brand strategy and coaching is that like you're helping someone or a brand get to that core essence and really see it. Like see that core essence, name it, understand what it feels like, and then bring it out into the world in ways that are true to who you are. So we did that with Eat Real.
Yeah. It made me remember the brand star that we created and those points of tension for Eat Real, and then how also individuals can create their own personal brand star of who they are. They're exuberant but serious, like, or exuberant but science-based, and we really created these tension points where we were welcoming but scientific, and like kind of created these natural tensions that in different moments the org showed up differently, but then we needed a brand ecosystem where we could play up the different parts of the complexity of what we're doing. We're trying to build a movement, but a very credible science-based movement. And so really like pulling out the tension and then finding the right colors and the right slogans, the right story. It was like, I learned so much from you, not only how to build a brand, but then the process that you go through to do it. It was like just one of the most invigorating 5-week sprints of my life.
It was super fun. And for me, Eat Real is, it's the upstream part of my purpose. My purpose is to move people to own their creative power in service of a more vibrant and beautiful world. And Eat Real is the most upstream. Which is up? The most,
Yeah.
is this left?
Yeah.
Yeah, the most upstream part of that purpose for me, because for kids, like to fuel their creative power, it starts so fundamentally with nourishment and with health. And so that's why I'm even on the board of Eat Real, and we've been on this journey together. But when it came to getting to do the brand, like as you called out, like I saw and pointed out, and something that we all knew, but no one,
You felt it. We felt it. You said it. Like that's you walking into, that was like level 3 listening of like, okay, we need to get ready.
Yeah, like we're gonna show up at a health tech summit with bake sale vibes.
Yeah.
Like, I
True.
don't think so.
Yeah. Like a fork. That's all we had was a fork.
Yeah, we had a cute, like, a cute logo that was befitting
Yeah.
of who the brand was at a time.
Yeah.
But now, we're ready for Jazz Fest, and we're showing up with a kazoo, which is super adorable, but just not effective, or at least not going to get us like obviously
Right.
as the easy choice to be invited into certain conversations. So we went through a process at IDEO of like prototyping, getting feedback. Like one of the most important things we did, and this is what I was saying about playing small too, or like playing big, like letting go of outcomes. Don't be married too quickly. Like the creative process, the innovation process is not linear. You can't, if you're going to create something new, you don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. You have to trust the process. And so we gave our creative ideas up to stakeholders, across the whole system for Eat Real, like people in schools, potential donors. Like there were lots of people that we got feedback from, as well as you and the core team. But like people across the system got to see early prototypes and break them apart and tell us what resonated and what didn't, so that we could then put together, like synthesize what it had to still be true. We couldn't make something up, but like it also had to be relevant to them. So true, relevant, and then design magic.
Yeah. And into the future from where we were about to be. So
yeah. And we wound up with something that it beautifully still, like we had a fork back in the day. We still have like it's like, oh, here, oh my gosh. I always keep this.
You can kind of see it. There's a serving spoon inside. I don't know if people even see it because it looks like a sprout.
Yeah.
It's a serving spoon.
So subtle.
First, a nod to school lunch.
Yeah.
Some people thought maybe it should be a spork for school lunch, but we want the serving spoon for a community and a bowl that you would like serve to one another. And
Which we
um,
do. I mean, it's like that is,
yeah,
it's
it brought together, and we
yeah,
went through so many iterations, and there were things that were thrown at the wall about it. And I remember like sitting in a car with someone like, "What do you think of these?" and "What do you think of these?" and like it was just like it was a really powerful process, and everybody we built it together and we dreamt it together, which was really fun.
yeah, yeah. And it also brings up the multidisciplinary, like to crack hard problems open. And maybe the parallel for leaders is like having your team, having your advisory team,
Mhm.
like in order to truly move yourself forward in new ways and unstick. I mean, a coach is a great way to help you do that. And you need a multidisciplinary team of people to bounce things off of, because by having that, and this is what we do, or what we did at IDEO, having this multidisciplinary group of people and all those varied stakeholders looking at it, you get to see it from all angles all at once. Because just looking at it from one set of eyes, like, only the graphic designers are looking at the logo. Like we design way more than a logo, that. Like
Yeah,
we
yeah.
designed the whole like brand,
The
yeah,
colors, the visual direction,
the verbal identity, everything, which
which
gives
we eReal.org, we have a new website that was like V2 of the brand too. It just launched. So it's like, it's so pretty. It's like, even it just keeps the gift that keeps growing. So
yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, a good brand identity shouldn't be locked in time and like only good for one moment. Like it's got, it's got legs. So anyway, but looking at it from a multidisciplinary perspective and having like people that have different expertises and points of view to crack it wide open all at once, and not being tied to an outcome, not being precious about your hypothesis in the beginning, like being open to prototyping and letting
yeah,
letting it be ripped apart. This is also learning from failure, another
yeah,
one of my um, drinking the Kool-Aid of human-centered design thinking, and something that I practice in my coaching and how I help people unstick, right? Like embracing failure
mhm,
is it's really scary and really hard for most people, even people that you wouldn't expect would be afraid of failure are.
yeah,
And I have drunk the Kool-Aid so much on failure that I'm here to say, like, it is failure is part of the creative process. It is
ooh,
part of transformation. Like, if you're not failing,
yeah.
you're not growing. If you're not failing, you're not learning. If you're not failing, you're not going to transform. Like, you should be designing for failure. Like, put those things out there in order to break something so that you can learn from it and then make the better thing.
I love that. We also just had a meeting where we were just, I owned a failure, other people were owning failures. Like, how do we just like normalize failing more and like be really open about it, and also celebrate of like, we failed on this, we failed fast. This is what we learned. Let's do it again. Like, let's go. Like, that's why the iterative process that you do in design thing is so powerful. But I love that message of like, especially as like an overachiever and someone who like strives to do really well, of just like, failing is important, you know? So I think, yeah, I love that message. I love it. Well, it is just a joy to be in conversation with you. Every time we're in conversation, I learn from you. I love your coaching. You've changed my life. So other people that maybe want to, find you, etc. How do they find you? Website, social media? What's your LinkedIn? I devour all of your content there. I love it. How do people find you? When does your book come out? When's your TED Talk? Yeah, tell us everything.
Yeah. Um, from your mouth to the universe's
Yep, it's gonna happen.
ears.
Add to
There
cart.
will,
I'm
there'll be a book
pre-ordering.
someday for sure. But for the time being, I'm all over LinkedIn. That is the main place to find me. It's Meija Jacobs. You'll put it on your
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes.
and I will invite all of the Nourish with Nora listeners to join me for an individual 30-minute complimentary coaching jam session.
Love
Um,
it.
So yeah, we'll put that in the show notes, how they can sign up for that. It's also, you can get to it through my LinkedIn. You can also just DM me on LinkedIn. I do have a website as well. It's meijajacobs.com. But most of the content that you want to see, if you want to kind of get my vibe, is going to be on LinkedIn. So yes, thank you so much for having me. And I just want to encourage everyone, your edge isn't the danger zone. It's where the creative power lives. Go after the edge
And fail.
and fail.
Love it. Thank you, Meija. You're the best. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Nora.